Hey, it's Jer. A quick word before we get started. We want to know why you love the show and what you would tell somebody if you wanted to tell them about the show so that they listen to it. dailydetroit.com/pod survey. That's dailydetroit.com/pod survey and help us grow the show. Thank you so much. Hello, friends, and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Thursday, March 9th, 2023. I'm Jer Stays, and somebody a little different. Man, this is not Tuesday. What are you doing here?
I don't have a home, so I just go wherever I'm needed.
What you don't know is that Fletcher sometimes stays on the studio couch, but that's all right. We love him. It's so good to talk to you, Fletcher Sharp.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me for, another day, showing that I'm a bit more versatile. I can do more than sports. Just, you got to really bring it out of me.
Well, there is a little bit of sports to talk about at the tail end of the show, but I want to open up with that fire that I heard about just a few blocks from your actual home, because no, you are not homeless. Over there in Grosse Pointe Park, there was like a 4-alarm blaze that I heard about. I actually got a chance to see it over on Charlevoix, right between O'Flaherty's, which is a pretty popular pub that way, and then Park Place Market, which has been around forever and a day. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but the damage looks pretty serious, man.
Yeah, apparently the owner of the storage unit was inside the place when it caught fire, so they're going to try to find the cause. But I know last night around like 10:30, 11 o'clock, I saw a bunch of fire trucks fly down my street, and I just got home from a pretty rough sporting event, so I was kind of like, whatever. Like, they fly down the street anyways. I live down the street from the emergency response place, whatever. But yeah, I looked up this morning, and I saw a bunch of people who live in the area on their Instagram stories, Facebook stories, just a bunch of just fire shots next to O'Flaherty's. And yeah, it's really great that, no one was hurt. Really great that O'Flaherty's is all right. So is Park Place, especially because, they have a really full market there. You don't really want that to burn down.
They also have a great selection of liquor over there.
Yeah, liquor, food. You can get like actual legit pizza. It's a little bit more expensive because they're like legit making it in front of you, but still, white cheddar pepperoni. Heck yeah. But just, it's really sad that it happened with someone inside. Obviously, again, great that he's fine, but I hope they can figure out what happened, because from that time until yesterday around like 6 o'clock, the police had blocked off the street, and like there were still firefighters there, like doing something to the building, which is like very, very concerning, because the fire should have been out long ago. So if they're still there with their hoses ready, something is definitely going on there.
Well, it's something where you want to make sure that it's out, especially when you've got so many buildings near each other. Grosse Pointe Park is one of the more residentially and business dense areas in Metro Detroit. You want to make 100% sure everything's fine. I also understand, though, that on Wednesday night, O'Flaherty's got back open. So, obviously, little worse for wear. Obviously, maybe there's some smoke from other sides, but a lot of these older buildings, they're designed with like a brick firewall between just for this purpose. People don't realize that. But those walls between buildings are often, especially those older buildings, if they're built right, there's like a real, like a secure, actual, like the original term firewall, not like the tech term like that it came from.
Yeah, I mean, those charred hipster bricks is going to really bring some people in to want to look at the aesthetic, but like they serve a real purpose.
100%, 100%. Let's get into some stories around town. One that I thought you would find interesting, and I find interesting too, is that Michigan could be the center of one of the largest legal marijuana business failures in the United States. So according to some reports, with Crane's Detroit Business kind of leading the charge with some of the initial documents, I'll put a link in the show notes, Skyman, which has a number of retail stores across Michigan. I want to say like 24 of them. They've got a couple of grow ops. They've got like 600 employees. Skyman is now going under receivership. Apparently, they owe more than $127 million to a Canadian investment firm called Tropics LP.
$127 million?
Yeah.
What?
Well, apparently they also recently bought, I think, 315, another cannabis place in like the big consolidation. But apparently, all told, they're losing $3 million a day at their operation. So they've got one in Hazel Park and one in Hamtramck, if you count the new thing that they kind of added on. So yeah, that's a lot of money that they're bleeding as the Michigan marijuana business starts. I mean, it is not in good shape right now.
$320 million, $3 million a day. And you know what the really messed up part is? I I've never heard of this company before.
Really?
Never in my life heard of this company before, and they're losing this much money.
Now you've consumed before, and you know people who consume, right? I know you asked some people about this.
Yeah, I asked a few people, and all of them were like, save for one who was like, I think I've heard of them. Someone's like, is that a Strand? And I was like, no, it's a company. They're like, oh, no. That's wild to me. That's like filming NFL games illegally type of money you're losing. Like, what? What is that? What?
So there's a couple of things that I learned. We recently had Paul Demko from Politico on the podcast. Couple things he shared. One, Michigan is growing 3 times the amount of legal weed that it needs to consume. And 2, the market has crashed. At one point, it was like, $400, $500 an ounce. And now it's like $80 an ounce. And yeah, like there was a lot of hopes that this business was going to be something. And obviously they're all paying like taxes, and there are local municipalities benefiting from this. But as far as the industry overall, I think a lot of people had a lot more, they were a lot more hot to trot than like actual consumption. I think there was like a mismatch there.
That doesn't surprise me. If you drive down Mac, you'll find like 8 or 9 different dispos. And I don't mean like different in terms of like, oh, this is, Smith's Family East and Smith. No, it's like different entirely. All selling most of the same stuff, but like just, it's almost like Starbucks. How Starbucks for a while was just everywhere, where you look at 3 different corners of an intersection, and 3 of them have Starbucks. One is a gas station, and then right next to it is a Starbucks. Just they're everywhere, and I understand like people thinking this is my chance to like break out and do something for myself. But if everyone's doing the same thing you're doing, you're not really zigging. You're zagging with everybody. I know a lot of famous people made their own strains, hoping like I know Ben Wallace has one. I know a few other athletes. Calvin Johnson has one. People are hoping to like kind of cash in on like now it's legal. But the problem is if you're cashing in when everyone else is cashing in, nobody's cashing in.
But some of those brand deals maybe make a little bit of sense, because what you're telling me, you're like, you haven't heard of this. And I know that I think there's like Cloud Cannabis over by you and some others. Those deals with famous names, if there is a crowded market, maybe that can be something that sets you apart a little bit.
I know of Cloud. I've never been inside of Cloud, but I do know that they are very, very much recently proud of the fact that they are open to the public as opposed to just people with med cards. They have flags everywhere indicating so.
Well, that's because the city of Detroit just recently opened up all that stuff.
Oh, I know. But if you did not know that, Cloud will make sure you definitely know, because they have flags over every part of their building. Like, hey, open to the public, open to the public. You driving by? Open to the public. We're open to the public. And it's like, okay, we got it. We got it. We'll come in here if we need to. Get out of the middle of the road, please.
Do they have the sign guy? Have they gone that far?
No, but honestly, if they did, I feel like it would be a guy who's just throwing stuff across the street like, hey, did you see that? Come over here.
Well, I think long term, this is going to be interesting to see, because, there was this idea that making cannabis legal was going to, be freeing and all this other stuff. But really, it's turning into the same corporate consolidation that everything does. And I mean, a lot of these things, there's stock tickers behind all this. So, you look up Tropics LP, the company that Skymint owes money to. They're actually held by a NASDAQ listed company. This has become a completely different game than it was before. Do you think most people are doing the legal thing, or do you think there's still people who still got their weed man?
I mean, I'm sure there are a few who still have their guy who comes by and will sell you something and play some video games with you just because, that's part of the price. Or maybe he'll eat part of your chicken nuggets as like, thanks, man, if you don't have the money. In a way, I think it's also been helpful, I guess, towards like the drug itself, because there are plenty of people who had many different misconceptions of it now, or feel very differently now the fact that it's public. I know I have some people through sports who are like, I think it's terrible. It's tearing apart communities, who now are like, yeah, I use edibles and I use rub-on salves to like help with muscles after stuff. And like, it's not making me into a worse person. It's just making me a little bit more hungry. I think in a way it's helpful there. I think it's good. But yeah, I still think some people are like, I don't want to pay this much for a premium. Some companies deliver door to door, but like the surcharges are like insane. So like, I'd much rather just have my guy show up with whatever he has, and I hope that it's good. If not, I just, paid this for whatever. And this guy, ate up all my chicken tenders.
Well, I mean, on the other side, especially where you are, there's a lot of them. Like, there's a real inconsistency here, because there are certain municipalities that got a bunch of them. You got your Hazel Parks. You've got Detroit in certain areas right near the suburban borders. I do not think that is, I mean, yes, there's licensing concerns, but also I think that's very intentional, right? Like, it reminds me of a friend of mine who was real excited that Chipotle was coming to Detroit, and, he lives near downtown. And then all of a sudden he realized that Chipotle is on Mac next to Grosse Pointe. And it's like, yeah, it's in Detroit, but saying something's in Detroit, that's a really, really big thing. And it's a time immemorial thing to set up a business that you can't run in the suburbs right on the Detroit border. That's been happening, for decades.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for people on the Grosse Pointe City Council, but I will say when Cloud Cannabis opened right on the border of Detroit and Grosse Pointe, there are a lot of people who are like, "Oh, that's as close as it's going to get to our city. It's not going to breach our bubble. We don't like the fact that it's that close because it might bring a different crowd." I'm like, what type of crowd is that?
You mean your daughter, your son?
They're like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I don't mean it in like a racist." I'm like, okay, all right. I know what you're saying, but it's cool. I got it. Thank you.
I look at that, I'm like, what crowd is it bringing? Your uncle? Like maybe it's because I'm a little bit younger, but I feel like it's kind of universal. I don't partake, but I feel like almost everybody I know does.
And again, to the point of like, I think it becoming legal and public is great to the sense that like a lot of people have these really bad misconceptions of it, that it'll turn you into like some super strong, like indestructible bath salt huffer. But like in actuality, there are some medical properties that are good. There are some things that are also not great. I'm not going to sit here and say it's the best thing in the
Well,
world.
and neither of us are doctors, right? Like,
Right.
There's a difference between, what we can kind of speculate on and what is like bringing in a doctor and talking about it. But, a lot of those stories that you're talking about are rooted in intentionally racist campaigns of the past. You can go online and see some crazy videos that a lot of this war on drugs, a lot of this stuff was meant to push back and to box in and to discriminate against Black communities.
I'll leave this segment with this note. There is this prominent right-wing political person, I forgot his name, but he was like, "Don't do weed. I took one puff from a cigarette in Lexington, Kentucky, and I woke up on a plane to Kenya." And I was like, that wasn't weed. That was not weed. Don't blame that for that. That was something else entirely. And part of me feels bad for you because I'm sure you had some scary thoughts along the way, man.
I mean, geez, I was just gone for the ride. If like I woke up and I'm like, okay, well, I got the money and I'm here. I guess we're going to Kenya. All right. Another story that has been all over people talking about, I think this story comes up every few years. There's a headline in the USA Today: water crisis in West has prompted desperate ideas, drain the Great Lakes and desalinate ocean water. They go on in this article to kind of outline the different ideas. They say the idea is to divert from the Great Lakes into the Colorado River, and that a similar proposal has been suggested diverting the Mississippi, which, by the way, I just recently was in Memphis. The Mississippi is not doing well as far as river height, into Lake Powell. They say how it could work is with 20% of the available surface freshwater in the world, the Great Lakes are essentially massive reservoirs that could quench the thirst of states like Arizona and California. I got a lot of strong feelings about this, but I will start this conversation with one, this is clearly not legal right now. Like there are multiple international and state compacts that prevent this, but let's talk about it.
I will not repeat my first thought on the topic when reading the title of that article, because I don't want people to write in saying, he said something salty. But I will say, if you are from one of those other states and you're one of those people who's considered the Midwest a flyover state, Michigan, Illinois, there's nothing, you can fly over and come back and get some water and then bring it back yourself. I don't know. Why would you penalize people who are depending on the lakes right next to them because you are mismanaging the water that comes to your state? That's not very fair to the people who live by the Great Lakes.
Well, I don't even think it's mismanaging. It's just you're overbuilding. Like it's a mismanagement from a sense that you shouldn't be putting so many people where there aren't natural resources. We knew it was coming. You can see all the things coming. It's like super clear, but we're obsessed with like that manifest destiny that kind of America was founded on. And it's like, you know what? No, I think that we should be more sensible and set things up where, like the water works. Like I've played Civilization before. You don't want to set up your main city away from a water source.
That's what I'm saying. Mismanagement. If you only have enough water for like 100 people, why would you then invite 600 people?
Profit.
Well, who's profiting? Because now you have 500 people who are going to go without water. Now they're going to start beating up other people to get their water. It causes problems. I mean, heck, I was in California in the past 3 or 4 years. And of course, being from Michigan, I've never had a water drought before. But my father and I were in Yosemite and we were washing our hands and someone came in like, "Excuse me, we have a limit for, how long you should be running water." And we're like, what? They're like, "Yeah, we're in the middle of a drought." And I'm like, all right, what does that mean? It's like, well, we want you to wash your hands for X amount. I'm like, that's not even washing your hands. Like, that's literally just putting your hands underneath, like, a sink, letting it touch your fingers and be like, all right, I'm done. Germs aplenty. No, thank you.
I know a lot of people who like use more sanitizer and things like that, but I look at this and I think it would be a critical mistake to ever sell that off because it's something, it's leverage that we have. And honestly, I think that a lot of things with, development, and this might surprise some people, might not, those who've listened to the show for a while, I believe in sensible development. Like, I think that we shouldn't enable policies. I mean, an era may be beautiful, but if we're enabling policies that are unsustainable, the problem is that because there are people who are making profit along this chain all the way, nothing's going to change until something tragic happens. It's just kind of like that study I saw this week that we need, all these billions of dollars more to fix our roads. No one wants to hear that. Like, they're right. Like, I don't doubt they're right, but no one wants to hear it. No one's going to do anything until something tragic happens. So until, and there are water cut downs, right? But it's not gotten to that boiling point. Once it gets to the boiling point, people are going to really start to put the pressure on.
I understand there are many other ways to go, but if the way they want to go is trying to find a way to legalize moving massive amounts of water from the Great Lakes, no, I will be there by myself if I have to, in a bright safety vest with my hand out no thank you.
I'm not going to say what I was going to say. Are you going to be wearing nut hugger shorts? Will you do it?
If they will, I'll wear some fluorescent ones just to get someone's attention. To do the best, to quote one of my favorite movies and graphic novels, they'll look up and yell, "Save us!" And I'll whisper, "No."
Well, of course, thoughts on any of these stories, dailydetroit@gmail.com. All right, before we let people go, we need to talk about this signing with Detroit City FC. This happened in between the Tuesday show and Saturday, and I thought we would talk about it because I think this guy's he might even start or be close to starting. What is the deal with Tommy McCabe? And let me tell you, when I hear the name Tommy McCabe, I think about The Simpsons, and I think Tommy McCabe from teams such as Orange County FC and FC Cincinnati. You might know him in games such as. Anyway, what do we got ahead with us with Tommy McCabe? I'm a little surprised. More defense.
Orange, New Jersey native, played soccer at Notre Dame, so you know that he knows how to ball properly. New Jersey puts out a lot of high-quality players. One that comes to mind is U.S. Women's National legend Carly Lloyd. Yeah, he's a defensive midfielder who can play in the middle, can also play a bit more up top. I asked USL Tactics John Morrissey for example of a player on our roster that he could compare to, and he's like, yeah, Leigh Jope. He's literally a different version of Leigh Jope. Less shot-happy, more staying in towards the back, which would allow Maxey to get a bit forward, which is great for that. It will allow Leigh to come off the bench potentially, or to start potentially, and Tommy to come off and spell him, or to have them both together to lock down a game for victory. Tommy comes with championship pedigree. He played a little bit in the MLS with FC Cincinnati before getting loaned out. He won a title with Orange County SC in 2021, their improbable run. He was also part of the team last year, which was the first team to be not qualified for the playoffs, to be eliminated. They had a very bad year, but he still played very consistently. So something he brings is consistency in that end, which is something you want. Again, you got to score goals to win games, but if you bring on people who can stop people from scoring, your only problem becomes putting the ball in the net once. Bringing a player like this really helps solidify the back and allows for the team to kind of press a bit more and try to get a goal. Or if they're ahead, to try to, steal the game away.
Do you think this impacts your prediction on Saturday's game at all?
Not necessarily. And the reason being is just there's not enough time. I know he's been with the team for not just one day, but there's not enough time for him to come in and learn the full defensive structure, the full offense, everything like that, the full transition that you would try to go with. So he's really working off of instinct, which could help, but also could hurt because he might zig when the other team zags, and then you have a big hole that's just left there. So I think it really keeps me at the 1-1, 0-0, at best 2-2 draw. I don't see a victor coming out of that game.
Overall, are you positive on the signing?
Oh, definitely. Adding a player who has a championship in the same league you're trying to play with, who played last year with one of the best strikers in the league, who can offer some insight just from playing wise to other players in the league, who can allow some of your other players like Maxey, Skage, other players who attack more to be able to push up a bit because you have some defensive resiliency. That's great. I'm always for that. Players who maybe don't show up in the stats so well, but do the dirty work that allow your other players to shine. I love players like that. You need players like that to win championships.
Well, Fletcher Sharp, I appreciate you joining us on this Thursday. And I'm excited to catch up with you after that Detroit City FC game and see where we stand.
Yeah, hopefully I'm wrong and there's 3 points, but, last year I was a lot more right than I was wrong, so.
You know what? I will say this. You pretty much nailed it on the head last year for predictions. So, I got to give you that credit 100%, especially with the end of season where we landed.
Well, that's why they call me Fletcher Nostradamus, because, I be knowing.
All right, you can follow Fletcher on Twitter at SaintFDW. Of course, we've got our newsletter, dailydetroit.substack.com. With that, I'm Jer Stays.
And I'm Fletcher Sharp.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.